At the very end of the war, after 4 years of peace talks that were not getting anywhere in Paris, and we'd keep track through they used to have these speakers in the camp in the buildings, and we'd have to sit and listen to the propaganda and to Hanoi had an English-speaking version of Tokyo Rose, broadcasting to the troops in the South, and they would pipe all that stuff into us, and so we listened. We learned how to filter the facts from all the BS, and pick out little things here and there. And during those 4 years of bombing, it was just, we understood that things were just not going to move fast, and it's going to be a while longer. You had to keep that optimism as a group. It's going to be longer and a little longer as the years went by. But then in the summer of, early summer, I think about May actually of '72, the bombing resumed, and Nixon was the president. And he'd been the president since 68 elections. And we figured, okay, this is the only way we're going to get out of here, is to force them to come to the table, force the North Vietnamese to give in. And one thing we had learned, though, is that during those 4 years, we, the POWs, were going to be a very important part of the outcome. In other words, because they started 69, 70, 71, conditions were getting better and better. They were becoming more of like a POW should be treated in living conditions. A diet, they gave us better diet probably middle of January. They took us out and read us the accords, the peace accords, and said, you'd be going home soon. So by that time, we were getting not only food, we were helping prepare it ourselves. We were getting more food. They were bringing in cans of food from Eastern Europe, potatoes, cans of fish from China. I mean, just coming in by wagon loads. And for those of us that were in the Hanoi Hilton, and so we had that where they took us and read us the peace accords, and that we'd be going home soon, and then didn't know how soon, because we were occupying our time with playing bridge, other things, exercising, doing things. And so we didn't know how long it would be. Then soon after they read the peace accords, they brought, middle of the night, here comes all this noise out in the middle of the courtyard. And what they had done is, after the Sante raid, they had brought everybody into the Hanoi Hilton, big complex, and the main part of that prison complex. So every POW that they had was there, and we organized ourselves as a air wing. And then they took me and some people back to the zoo. Others they took elsewhere. We didn't know where. Well, as it turns out, they had opened up a camp up along the China border, and they took a lot of the junior officers up there, a lot of them. And we didn't know this, where they were. So back to that night, middle of the night, we already knew we were coming home, and we heard all this commotion outside, and then looked out, and here coming in the courtyard were all these guys. They had brought them back from the China border. They were coming in, and guys I hadn't seen in years, my first roommate, and others. And it was like homecoming, Here we are looking out and talking to these guys, and a few nights later, here they came with, the guards came, took us in, issued us clothing, and said, tomorrow morning you go home. And I remember by this time I had pretty much resigned myself to that, I had no idea what my life was going to be. I knew that I had already known about my marriage. I had learned that a year before, but I didn't know what else, and I didn't know what else I was going to do and what happened. So I was looking forward to coming home, but not really anticipating anything. And, having been the subject of all this propaganda day after day after day, how bad the United States is, everybody's against the war, and on, and big defeats during the whole thing, that I had conditioned myself to not know what was going to go on, except we were all anxious to go. In that first group that they issued us clothing, there were 40 of us in the cell. It was the first 40 guys shot down. And I remember the last night there, they were going to wake us up, and they were going to be, they had issued our clothing. We'd be dressing up, and we'd be going to the airport. So it was hard to sleep that night. And I remember thinking about what I was going to eat, not really knowing, not thinking about much else, because I didn't know what conditions were like. So I remember the fellow sleeping next to me under his mosquito net, and he's tossing and turning too, and he says, in the middle of the night, well, they used to call me Alvy. That was my nickname. And he says, Alvy, I says, we made it. We finally made it.